Now, let's go back to Brexit now and get more reaction to the talks overnight in Brussels, which are being described as a breakthrough. The European Commission says enough progress has been made about citizens' rights, the Irish border and the size of the so-called divorce bill to move on to the second stage of talks, including trade negotiations. Well, let's get more reaction to this morning's Brexit development. Nigel Farage is an MEP and former leader of UKIP, and he's in Westminster for us right now. Very good morning to you, Nigel Farage. What's your response to this morning's developments?
What an extraordinary situation. A British Prime Minister has to fly through the middle of the night to go and meet three unelected people who condescendingly say, now, jolly well done, May. You've met every single one of our demands. Thank you very much. We can now move on to the next stage. I mean, the whole thing's humiliating. We've collapsed at every level. And to allow, you know, the European Court of Justice to have jurisdiction over this country for nearly a decade to come is not what people voted for.
But citizens' right, there has to be a two-way agreement. So the rights of British citizens living in the EU need to be protected. So you need a reciprocal agreement in that case. And the ECJ won't have a say on everything. They will have a say in some cases and a say over the rights of EU citizens living in the UK. Is that not fair?
Well, why should a multi-millionaire French banker living in London have more rights than anybody here who's British or indeed comes from the rest of the world? You can't have that. You know, either you live by one set of rules or you don't. That's not acceptable. The exit bill is way more that we need to pay. And in terms of us keeping alignment with the rest of the European Union, well, again, we voted Brexit so that we could, you know, be competitive and make our own laws. And now we go into a situation where she wants a transition phase where we'll stay a member of the European Union in all but name for a further 2 years.
Well, we don't know that yet because we don't know what the final deal will look like. So just to be clear, where we are now, so we've got to the stage where to move on to phase 2, it's been agreed that there will be no hard border separating Ireland and Northern Ireland. Citizens' rights will be protected and the divorce bill will be fair for British taxpayers. So do you disagree with all of those things?
Utterly. We're paying a completely gargantuan sum of money that we're not legally entitled to pay, and we're doing it because the Prime Minister is desperate to find some kind of deal. Look, ultimately, no deal is better than a bad deal, and on course at the minute, this is a very bad deal indeed.
Businesses have told us that they want a transition deal, so as a former businessman yourself, isn't that a good thing?
You know what? If we have this transition deal, it will be at least 6 years minimum from the date we voted Brexit before we're able to sign a trade deal with any other part of the world. I'm afraid, we are looking really rather less serious to the world outside the European Union than we were on Brexit Day.
But Michel Barnier, on the Brexit bill, you're saying it's a staggering amount, it's an amount we shouldn't be paying. But Michel Barnier has said this morning that it's impossible to calculate how much that will be. It's dependent on future developments.
Well, of course, and Theresa May offered 20 billion, and they said, oh, well, that's very nice of you, Mrs May, but double it. So she's doubled it to 40 billion. I've no doubt it'll finish up at 60 billion. You know, we are dealing with completely unreasonable people. The European Union is not adjusting any of its future spending plans, despite the fact one of the main contributors has voted to leave, and we are picking up the tab. And frankly, we look like mugs.
So what are you saying? No compromises should have been made then? Because what we heard this morning was that we wouldn't be in this position, we wouldn't be moving on to phase 2 next week if compromises weren't made on every side.
They set the terms of these negotiations from the start. Frankly, there have been no negotiations. We've wasted months and months, and in the end, we've agreed to all the things the Commission insisted upon in the first place. No, we should never, ever, ever have been making a series of concessions just in some vague hope that we might get a trade deal at the end of it.
Well, Monday's delay was actually because of the DUP.
Thank goodness. At least there are some people in British politics with principle. There isn't much of that in the Conservative Party. And everything that's been agreed today, everything is against what 17.4 million people said on June the 23rd, 2016.
Well, it's not, though, is it? Because people wanted different things. We don't know what the final version of Brexit will look like. This is to do with citizens' rights. It's to do with the divorce bill as well.
We voted to make our own laws in our own country, adjudged by our own courts and to control our own borders. I don't think anyone that voted Brexit didn't understand those things very, very clearly indeed. And, you know, we're agreeing that a foreign court can have jurisdiction over people living in this country for at least a further 8 years.
Nigel Farage, we have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed.